White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has gone public with her insults to a senior White House correspondent for the Huffington Post. Her online post has so far been viewed some 16 million times on X. Let's walk through how the confrontation began. SV Date from the HuffPost asked her who suggested Budapest as the site of the potential next meeting between President Trump and President Putin of Russia. Budapest, Date points out, is where Russia promised it would not invade Ukraine back in the early 90s. Leavitt's reply, quote, "Your mom did." Date then asks, "Is this funny to you?" Leavitt then hurls insults, calling Date a far-left hack and directing him to stop texting, quote, "disingenuous, biased, expletive questions." SV Date, a senior White House correspondent for the HuffPost, joins us now live. SV, thanks so much for being with us. I'm curious to get an understanding of what it was that you were trying to determine based on the question of who decided Budapest. What was your intent with that question?
Well, to me, the choice of Budapest, as I laid out in the question itself, was interesting because I'm sure President Zelensky of Ukraine is not terribly fond of that idea because of what happened there in the early 90s. I think it was in 94, where they agreed to turn over the nuclear weapons that they had, like 1,200 or something like that. And in return, the promise was that, okay, Russia will leave us alone. And that the United States, Great Britain, and Russia agreed to those terms. So that happened in Budapest. And so the idea of going back there, it seemed a little odd. And I just wanted to know, well, did the president consider that? Did he think about that? Was he aware of that? And if so, then why do it anyway? And I'm still genuinely curious, and if they want to fill me in on why Budapest, I'd love to hear it.
It seems like a fair question, and we should let our viewers know that it's uncertain whether that meeting is actually going to happen now. Even the preliminary meetings between Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov now appear to be postponed. She characterized you in her response, one of her responses, as bombarding her phone. I wonder if you'd had communications with her previously in which there was a dialogue, if this was an aberration, in other words, the kind of response that you got here. Well,
the kind of response that I got is an aberration, because normally she just ignores all my questions, as does the press office, by the way. And these are the type of questions that, I'm emailing them or texting them or trying to go in and talk to them pretty much several times a week, because that's every time I write a story about the White House, that's our job, is to ask. And by the way, I'll remind you, she is the press secretary for the White House, so this would be a person I would want to ask. And so am I bombarding her? No, I don't harass her and insult her and whatnot. Every time I have a question that I send to the White House press staff, I also send it to her in case one of them chooses to respond.
I wonder what you make of the accusation that you are a, quote, left-wing hack who routinely attacks the president. You did write a book a few years ago called The Useful Idiot about President Trump. What do you say to those comments?
Well, I'll say this. When I started covering Donald Trump in 2015, I did not know him at all. In New York, real estate is not a thing that I ever covered. But everything that I've learned about him, and having covered his campaign and his presidency, the views I have about Donald Trump now are those that have come from my reporting and from my watching him and from my experience. And if I don't convey my conclusions about Donald Trump to my audience, then I'm failing them. I mean, people who are watching CNN or reading HuffPost or the New York Times for that matter, they shouldn't be expected to just get stenography and then go back and do all the historical research on what this man has said and done in the past before. I mean, I routinely say that the president lies. He does. He does. What can I do? I mean, that's who he is. And so I don't apologize for that at all. In fact, The Useful Idiot, the title, of course, is from an old Russian phrase about people who, do things because they're being used by others. And that's, honestly, it's what it seemed in the first term. That's what was going on with President Trump.
I wonder whether you think her publishing this exchange has either galvanized the base or potentially backfired, because it seems like politics nowadays in a lot of ways are a Rorschach test, right? What you interpret you're seeing says a lot about you, because some people see that and they think, oh, she's standing up to this reporter that misrepresents things or whatnot. Some people see it and think, boy, that's childish. A press secretary at the White House should not be responding that way, insulting someone's mother.
Right. Well, you know, as far as the folks who thinks Donald Trump can do no wrong and never has, you know, that's not my audience. That's not your audience, probably. And there's nothing I can do about that. All I can do is do my reporting. And part of that is asking them for their view of it, for their explanation of it, for some sort of background as to why this happened, etc. Did it help her base? Probably. I mean, you know, as you saw on Twitter, she got a bunch of retweets and people were calling me names, etc., etc. And that happens now. I mean, that's the world we live in.
It is the world we live in. SV Date, please let us know if you get an answer as to why Budapest.
If you do, I'd love to hear it as well.
Thanks so much. Appreciate your time.
Sure.
So what changed between last week and when Trump announced a second meeting with Putin and today? Ukrainian leader Vladimir Zelensky says he has an idea, and it has to do with Tomahawk missiles. We'll discuss in just moments.
Hi, my name is Damian Clark. And if you have both Medicare and Medicaid, I have some really encouraging news that you'll definitely want to hear. Depending on the plans available in your area, you may be eligible to get extra benefits with the Humana Medicare Advantage Dual Eligible Special Needs Plan. These plans have a $0 monthly plan premium. Most plans include the Humana Healthy Options Allowance. Get over $1,000 a year. That's $85